What's up, everyone? It's Ty, and now that the filming for season 5 of Stranger Things is underway, I want to talk about a few things that I would not like to see in the upcoming season. I'm probably going to end up making multiple videos like this because in anticipation for this upcoming season, as a huge fan of the show, there's some things that I think could really ruin the ending of this show. And I'm going to be talking more from a standpoint of the theories that I've seen in this video. And in a future video, I might dive into more specific characters that we have and how I would like to see their storyline ending or not ending. But yeah, in this video, I'm going to be talking a lot about the theories that I'm hearing. So the first thing I don't want to see in season 5 of Stranger Things is Eddie coming back to life in any way, shape, or form as a vessel for Vecna, as just his normal self again, as a ghost, as anything weird like that, as a monster. I want Eddie to be dead, respectfully. I didn't want him to be dead before. I didn't want him to die in season 4, even though I think he was a well-written character and that played into the writing of his character. I didn't want him to die, but now that he's dead, I think it's appropriate, and I think he should stay dead for the better of the show, for the better of his character. I don't think it would make any sense, and I know a lot of people are passionate about Eddie's character, and they want him to return in some capacity, but I really don't think it would make sense. I don't think that would be fitting given what his character went through last season. Remember all the turmoil he had to go through internally and externally, not only on screen, but what was explained in his life up to that point. And it was really brought to a good conclusion for him because even though the outside world didn't see it this way, he himself found it within himself to sacrifice his life for people that cared for him and for a good cause. And he found bravery within himself, and he largely looked at himself as a coward before that. And there was just so much development within himself. And for a TV show character, I don't think you could ask for him to progress more as a person. And I think it was perfect. I don't think he needs to be brought back in any way. And it would really feel cheap to me, honestly. Not to mention, the Stranger Things writers have already brought back a lot of our main characters from fake deaths. For example, Hopper, Eleven, Will, technically. So, they've done this before. Max last season, now that she's in a coma instead of being completely dead. So, we certainly don't need any more of that. That's been played enough. So, I think Eddie should stay dead. I loved him as a character, but he has no role in the show moving forward, unfortunately. The second thing I don't want to see in Stranger Things 5 is a time jump of more than a year and a half to 2 years. Anything more than that would feel a bit extreme for me. Now, in between every season of Stranger Things to this point, there has been a slight time jump of somewhere between 5 months and a year, which I think has been appropriate, not only just because of the time that the events take place in the fictional storyline, but because of the age of our characters and how they've aged throughout the progression of the show. And you need to keep their age in the show somewhat believable and matched with how they look in real life. The time jumps up to this point in the show have been fine, I think, but there's discussions for this one to be a much longer time jump, covering a much longer period into 1988 or 1999 from 1986, the spring of 1986, where we're left from at the end of season 4. I know I said I didn't want them to jump more than a year and a half or 2 years earlier in this video, but I honestly think keeping it a year or under would be appropriate, mainly because I don't quite understand what they're doing with the time jump here. What I mean by this is, one of the things I loved about the ending of season 4 is that they left us with the cliffhanger that the Upside Down was overtaking the world right in Hawkins already. And I'm just a little confused right now because there's set pics being released of the kids back in school, seemingly. It seems, we don't know anything for sure, but it seems to look like they're going back to school, maybe back to class and stuff. And I'm wondering, why would they be going back to school in Hawkins, especially if there's a time jump to like a year later or 2 years later or 3 years later without this issue getting resolved first? So that's why I'm a little confused about how the time jump comes into play, because at the end of the season 4, the world is already being overtaken by the Upside Down. Like, action needs to be taken now. So in that sense, the time jump doesn't make sense to me, in the sense of trying to keep the characters the right age, trying to portray them correctly. In that sense, I think it makes sense. And just in terms of having the season take place at a certain time or needing time to pass for certain events to take place within the storyline, I understand that as well. But specifically, once again, with how season 4 ended, with that imminent danger, it's present, it's here, it's in Hawkins. I don't understand how these set pics are being released of them being back in school after that. So if there's a time jump and it like starts back with them in school again in Hawkins, I'm going to be pretty confused and wanting some details about how it got to this point and why they didn't need to solve that issue before doing anything else. I also thought one of the points of season 5 and ending season 4 that way was that season 5 wasn't really going to have a buffer period. They were going to start the season jumping right into the action. And hearing that there's a time jump, and once again, I keep mentioning the set picks, but it's all just confusing me a little bit about that original message from the Duffer Brothers that season 5 would start fast and continue to be fast the whole time, because usually in the seasons leading up to this point we have a little bit to get acclimated with the characters and the new feeling of this season. But season 5 I thought was going to be a bit more action packed from the start, and I'm just a little bit confused how that all comes in with a time jump. But I guess we'll see in like a year and a half when this releases. But until then, I'm going to be very curious about it. But either way, I already struggle to make sense of it with any time jump at all, given the imminent danger of the upside down seeping into the real world. With a time jump of any more than a year, I think it would become very perplexing, and there would be a lot of explaining that would need to be done for me to understand that big of a jump, especially. The third thing I do not want to happen in Stranger Things 5 is for the writers to wait to kill off all the main characters they're going to kill off until the final episode. Now, look, I want to keep a lot of these precious characters for as long as possible, so ideally until the final episode. But I think sometime in the middle of the season, there has to be a character that gets caught up in the battle and that we lose, just to feel like the stakes are there throughout the entire season and not just once we get to that finale episode. I think they've done a decent job of that in the past with minor characters dying throughout the season. But, we're at the granddaddy of them all now, the final season. I think one of our less significant main characters, I'm thinking a Murray, a Jonathan. Obviously, these are still very main characters, but not like the most beloved characters. I'm thinking one of them could die in the middle of the season, and I think that would be the right move. Once again, just to make it feel like the stakes are high at every moment of the season. Not, oh, well, we know nobody's really going to die or really be in any huge trouble until the final episode. No, like surprise us with something in the middle. I think if they didn't do that, it would make the last season slightly less suspenseful until the last episode or two. And I think it would be a good writing move for the Duffer Brothers. So I don't want them to wait. I want them to give us a death, or at least a very, very near death in the middle of the season to one of our beloved characters. And just to make it clear here, you might think it's weird that I'm asking for a character death. At this point, I'm assuming that 2 to 4 main characters are going to die in the final season, especially given the scrutiny the Stranger Things writers, the Duffer Brothers, have faced in the past about not killing off main characters. So I think it's inevitable. I think it's coming. And I just don't want all of the characters that they kill off to come in the last episode. If they're only going to kill off one character, then okay, I guess just in the final episode. But I'm anticipating multiple main character deaths. That's why I'm saying they should be spread out a little bit. And for the final thing today, the fourth and final thing that I don't want to see happen in season 5, and this might be controversial. I know people want to see this character getting back more involved again, and so do I, but I think there should be a cap to how far they take it. I don't want to see Will becoming the main character in season 5. I don't think it's his fault, but I think they have strayed too far from his character in the last 2 seasons to all of a sudden bring him back to such prevalence. I think he deserves a larger role in season 5, given his significance with the start of the show and all of these activities getting started in terms of the relations with the Upside Down and what we know was now Vecna in his mind, manipulating him through his vessel, the Mind Flayer. But I don't think Will should become like the main character. I don't think he should be focused on as much as the other 2 main characters in this show, which I view as Eleven and Hopper. 11 is the main character of the younger group. Hopper is the main character of the older group. And I think it should stay that way. And I think those 2 characters should get the most screen time, the most explanation in their endings, the most substance as characters, more so than Will. So basically, it's not that I don't want Will's activity and significance to increase. It's that I don't think it should increase to their level at this point, because I think that the writing has, brought me more of an attraction to the other main characters at this point. So bringing him back and giving me less of the characters that I'm more fond of and more connected to at this point would disappoint me. It would disappoint me if I get less closure with Lucas or Dustin, because Will gets a disproportionate amount of minutes in the closing of Stranger Things 5. So, I hear people saying, oh, I want him to be the main character. I want him to be the focal point. I want him to be the centerpiece. I like exploring his connection with Vecna and how that could help the group in this scenario, or potentially hurt the group, I suppose. I like exploring that. I think it could be a cool twist to season 5, along with, 11 trying to fight him, and maybe, the military or whatever's going on. But I don't think it should be the very main thing that's happening. I don't think his character should be the most prevalent. I don't even think he should be like the third most after Hopper and 11. I think he should kind of be on the same level as the rest of the other main characters, which I don't think he has been in recent seasons. So I do still want an uptick in his activity, in his screen time, in his significance, in his significant lines. I feel like he hasn't even been given much to say in the last couple seasons. But I do not want him to be at center stage, if you will, for this final season. But I want him to be more involved. So in conclusion, my Stranger Things 5 do not wish list is that I do not want Eddie to come back to life. I do not want there to be an extreme time jump. If they're going to kill off final characters, I do not want that to all happen in the last episode. I would much prefer them to be spread out a little bit. And then fourth and finally, I do not want Will to take over the storyline and become the most prominent character in season 4, as I've seen a lot of people theorize and hope for online. I would much prefer a lot of that screen time to go to Hopper and 11, the people who have been the much more main characters, especially in seasons 3 and 4, the most recent seasons. I think that's most appropriate, as I do with all of these things that I've mentioned here, that I do not and do want to see. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree.
What was the last? Why can I never remember?
Whatever happens, I'm looking forward to it, and you can expect a lot more season 5 theory videos from me, a lot more season 5 hopefuls and hope nots. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe below. It helps out more than you know. I'm trying to get to 100 subscribers before the end of the month. And yeah, I'll have a lot more content like this. I'll see you next time.